21 years ago, in December 2002 in Arkansas, a 13-year-old girl was found dead after meeting a stranger off the internet. The 13-year-old girl was Kacie Woody from Holland, Arkansas. She lived in a home in a woodland rural area with her father, brother, and his friend. Her father allowed her to communicate online using Yahoo Messenger and internet chat rooms because many outgoing phone calls were being billed as long distance and were becoming costly. Kacie went to Greenbrier Middle School and was enthusiastic and interested in music, being in a band and a choir. She was in the talent and gifted program at her school. She was described as a friendly girl who was close to her family and friends. She was also interested in poetry, dancing, and played the saxophone. In 2001 and 2002, 13-year-old Kacie had been using Yahoo chat rooms with the username Model Behavior 63 and was talking to a person she thought was a teenage male named Dave Fagan, who went by the username JazzmanDF in the Yahoo chat rooms. Kacie thought Dave was a cute, friendly boy who played football for his high school football team in California. His username JazzmanDF's profile photo was of a surfer dude. Dave claimed he loved surfing. Kacie became infatuated with Dave and had no doubts about his identity. She told Dave about her mom who died in a car accident on June 19, 1997, when Kacie was 7 years old, and told him how she got in a car accident on their way home from her brother's baseball game whilst her father, Rick, was driving when the car collided with a horse that had run into the road, shattering the windshield, hitting her mom, Christy, who was in the passenger seat. Rick had suffered broken ribs, and everyone else in the car had survived. Dave told her that his aunt, who had also happened to live in Arkansas, had recently been in a car accident and had become comatose and was not expected to live much longer. Kacie felt sad about Dave's aunt and had told her friends and family about Dave and his aunt's situation. Kacie's two close friends, Sam and Jessica, had also befriended Dave and had added him to their buddy lists on Yahoo Chat Messenger. Her friend Sam was concerned about Kacie being naive and had warned her about falling in love with people she hadn't met in person. Sam had an inkling Dave wasn't the person he said he was, and questioned if Dave was really a teenage boy because he was using outdated slang words such as groovy and far out. Kacie just thought he used those words because he was from California and that they use words like that in that state. Kacie had also at some point met an actual boy in a chat room who went by the username Taz2999. The photo on their profile was of a young teen boy in a football uniform. They claimed to be a 14-year-old boy named Scott from Alpharetta, Georgia, who loved football and wrestling. The photo on his profile was of a young teen boy in a football uniform. Kacie and Scott began dating on October 3, 2002. When Dave learned about the relationship, he stated that he wished to remain friends with Kacie. He also increased his talk about his aunt and her worsening condition. On the morning of Tuesday, December 3, 2002, Sam noticed that Kacie had the photo from Scott's online profile hanging in her locker and remarked that he was hot. Kacie misheard as fat and became angry, resulting in an argument between the two. When Sam asked Kacie how she got the photo, she told her that Scott had mailed it to her. Alarmed to hear that the photo of Scott had been mailed to Kacie, Sam warned her again about giving her address to people whom she had never met in person, telling her that Scott could be an 80-year-old rapist and that the photo could be of his grandson. Kacie did not take this warning seriously. Without her knowledge, Sam told the school counselor that Kacie had been giving out her phone number to strangers online. The counselor called Kacie into her office, warned her about the dangers of the internet, and told her not to meet any online friends in person without a parent present. On the evening of Tuesday, December 3, 2002, Kacie was in her home alone. Kacie was instant messaging with her boyfriend Scott from Georgia on the computer while talking to Dave over the phone. Dave told Kacie that his aunt's condition was worsening and that he was driving to Arkansas to be by her side until she died. At 9:41 p.m., Kacie's messages with Scott suddenly stopped. Scott became concerned about Kacie and continued to message her as a way of alerting her household that she had gone missing. He emailed her friend Jessica and attempted to phone the Woody house without any luck. Kacie's brother eventually returned home at about 11:40 p.m. and had noticed Kacie wasn't in her bed and notified her father, Rick, who drove home immediately to find out where Kacie was. Rick noticed the house had showed signs of a sudden disturbance, and Kacie's computer was left on with the chat window between her and Scott open, and Kacie's reading glasses were missing a lens, and her Yorkshire Terrier was limping. Kacie's brother messaged Scott and learned of Kacie's conversation with Dave and how she had suddenly stopped responding to Scott's instant messages. The police and FBI went to Kacie's house, and her father, Rick, denied she had run away from home. They seized Kacie's computer and questioned students and staff at Greenbrier Middle School, where Kacie attended. An FBI agent eventually found 2 male names in Kacie's trash container, which were Dave and Scott. They went to Alpharetta, Georgia to visit Scott and realized he was the person he said he was and was a teenage boy and was cleared of any suspicion. Investigators acquired information from Kacie's friends that the boy Dave Kacie was talking to told her he was on his way to Arkansas from California around the time Kacie had disappeared. They launched a search around the local area to find any clues about Dave's location. They eventually found out he was staying at Conway Motel 6 and discovered a 1993 Buick Regal with a California license plate and learned that the vehicle belonged to a 47-year-old man named David Fuller, who had checked into the motel on December 2nd, booking a stay there for a week, and had requested no maid service. He had complained to the staff about not being able to connect to the internet from his room. When investigators searched his motel room, they had found David Fuller's packed suitcase, his laptop, camouflage clothing, and rubber gloves. They noticed that the bed in his room had not been slept in. Detectives checked in with the Conway Enterprise Rent-A-Car, where an employee told them that David Fuller had been behaving oddly and was repeatedly going outside to smoke while he was filling out his paperwork. Detectives got a subpoena to acquire the paperwork and learned David's phone number matched one which was repeatedly dialed from Kacie Woody's home. They learned he rented a silver Dodge Caravan minivan and that his credit card had been recently charged by a self-storage facility in Conway, Arkansas. Fuller was confirmed to be Dave and became a suspect in the disappearance of Kacie Woody. Conway Police Sergeant Jim Barrett and 2 FBI agents got to Fuller's storage unit at around 6 p.m. on December 4, 2002. The door was pulled down and had no lock. When it was lifted, they noticed the silver Dodge Caravan inside, facing forward with its engine still running. When Barrett began to enter the unit, he heard a single gunshot being fired. Law enforcement ran for cover and called for assistance, while shouting commands for anyone inside to surrender, with no result. When a SWAT team arrived around 8:30 p.m., they stormed the unit. When Conway Police Sergeant Barrett had lifted the unit's door, the investigators and the SWAT team found David Fuller's body lying on the floor, not moving, holding a 9mm Luger in the back of his van where the seats had been removed. Barrett found Kacie's body lying in a supine horizontal position in the back of the minivan, with her wrists and ankles chained to the 4 corners of the van's floor. David Fuller had raped her before shooting her in the head. A half-empty bottle of chloroform and a rag were also found next to Kacie's head. 47-year-old David Fuller, who had 2 children and had been arrested for spousal abuse and indecent exposure in the past after exposing himself to 2 young girls, had catfished, abducted, and murdered 13-year-old Kacie Rene Woody and killed himself once investigators had found him. After David Fuller died, the FBI acquired a search warrant to go into his apartment, and as they were inside, they discovered a framed collage of photos of Kacie near his computer and had found papers with names of her friends written down along with addresses and phone numbers. The FBI also had found out under David Fuller's teenage boy Dave Fagan persona, he had attempted to groom at least 3 other girls around Kacie's age in the winter of 2000, but none of the attempts on the 3 girls led to offline, real-life encounters. In August of 2002, Child Protective Services had investigated a report that Fuller had been having showers with his daughter, which was eventually concluded not to be true. Police had also discovered he had visited Arkansas on 2 occasions, both times in the fall of 2002. 47-year-old David Fuller bought a gun on November 2, 2002, telling his children that he needed it for target practice. Investigators later put Fuller's DNA through a national database in order to figure out if he had committed crimes prior to Kacie's abduction and murder, but no matches were found. On Monday, June 30, 2003, the FBI presented Kacie Woody's father, Rick Woody, with a plaque and gave him a navy and gold patch with a teddy bear and computer on it. The computer screen on the computer, which was on the patch, had Kacie Woody, 1989 to 2002 text woven into it. The FBI gave Rick a plaque to honor his willingness to let the Bureau use his daughter's story. The FBI chose Katie because her story was indicative of what happens when adults pose as teenagers on the internet to lure children. 200 patches were made, and that innocent images agents would wear them. In 2002, catfishing wasn't a known term, and the case of 13-year-old Kacie Woody was the first documented instance of a teen being catfished, which led to murder in North America. Her case was a stark warning to the dangers of the internet and showed a clear example of the risk factors for teens communicating with strangers online.